only cares about two things, time and light. And today we're going to be talking about time and how we control it with shutter speed.
Awesome. So we are the Scobeys. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Graham.
And if we haven't met yet, nice to meet you. We're so happy to meet you. We are wedding and elopement photographers based out of Colorado. And we have a huge heart for education and just trying to help people understand that they don't have to be professional photographers to take amazing photos. And so today we're going to talk all about shutter speed. There are really only 3 variables that you can control with your camera. Those are your aperture, your ISO, and your shutter speed. So we're going to dig into shutter speed, talk about what it is, how you control it, why you should care about it, some of the really cool things you can do with it. And by the end of this video, you'll know a lot of what you need to know to tackle shutter speed.
That's right. So we just got back from a short little trip. We went camping. We went camping with our little buddy Webb. We took our cameras with us, took some photos. But we're curious to know, where are you going this summer? Do you have a trip that's planned for the summer? If so, drop it in the comments. Let us know where you're going. We're always looking for new places to road trip. So
totally, yes. And it always happens every summer that I'm like, this summer we're gonna have like downtime, and then it just goes crazy, and it's all vacation all the time, which is great. Traveling is super, super fun. Yeah. Am I the only one that feels like that, or is it just summer is like breakneck pace? Just that's how it goes.
It can be.
Yeah.
Also, give us a little thumbs up if you can hear us. That helps us know that this stream is actually working. We're always dealing with new technology, always trying new things, so we want to make sure that you guys can actually hear us. So give us a little thumbs up if you're watching this and you can hear it. And we also wanted to let you know that we have a YouTube channel. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're probably watching it on one of our Facebook channels, which is great. But Facebook kind of buries content, so you won't be able to necessarily find the videos that we do on subjects that are important to you. But if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, it'll notify you every time we go live, and then it's very searchable, so you can go through and see all of the video content that we're producing, all of the tips and tricks videos, reviews videos, these Friday live videos. They're all going to live on YouTube. So head on over to our YouTube channel. The easiest way to find that is by going to youtube.thescobeys.com. We'll leave a link in the comments below. And if you are one of our first 100 subscribers, and we're getting close.
We're so close. Help us out. We're so close.
So the window on this is closing, but you will be automatically entered to win one of our courses for free, our OSNAP course and our Manual Mode Bootcamp course. So multiple courses.
All the courses.
For free.
Yes.
So head on over there, subscribe, and that way you know when we produce new content. But today, we are talking about shutter speed. So our camera controls, like we said at the beginning, 2 things. Any camera dating back to the beginning of cameras, no matter how many knobs or buttons or dials or screens or menus are on that camera, really they only control 2 things. And those 2 things are time and light. How much time we're allowing our media to be exposed for, and how much light we're letting into our camera that's exposing our media. Yeah. So shutter speed is how we control how much time we are allowing our camera to expose our media to light.
Yes. So your shutter is basically, think of it as like a curtain, right? And the curtain opens and closes to let your camera's sensor be exposed to the light that is on the outside of your camera, right? It goes through the lens into the sensor. But in between the lens and the sensor is your shutter, your curtain. And you want to open the curtain to let in the light, and you want to close the curtain to stop letting in the light, right? So your shutter speed is just how long is that curtain open for, right? You can have a super, super, super fast shutter speed where the curtain is just open for like milliseconds, right? And you can show them what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, so I don't know, we'll see if we can see this. Yeah, very, very faintly. In a DSLR like this, there's a mirror in between the lens and the shutter, and the mirror is refracting light up into a prism so that when we look through our viewfinder, we can see exactly what is coming into the lens. So
if you've ever wondered, like, how is the viewfinder up here and the lens is down here and I'm seeing it, that's how.
Through mirrors and prisms. But the shutter, when I have like a slow shutter speed, it's a good way to show this. So like when I let my camera keep that shutter open for 2 seconds, let's say, what happens first is the mirror in a DSLR swings out of the way, and then our shutter opens. That curtain that Ashley was talking about, that opens up, and it exposes our sensor to the light that's coming through. So you can kind of see when there we go. You saw the 2 little blips, right? So that was a 2-second exposure. The mirror bounces up out of the way. The curtain or shutter opens, and then shutter closes. Mirror slides back down into place.
Yeah. So the way that shutter speed is kind of shown on your camera is with a fraction. And the reason that it's shown as a fraction is because it is a fraction of a second, right? A 2-second shutter speed, like Graham just showed you, is a very slow shutter speed, right? A 1/1000th of a second is a very fast shutter speed. And so you just want to kind of use these based on the situation that you're in, what you need, and also how much light you want to let into your camera.
Right. That's exactly right. So
exactly right.
So there are a lot of different ways that we can utilize shutter speed. The first and probably the most common and most important thing to understand about shutter speed is it's how we're going to get clean, crisp images every single time.
Which this is one of the most common questions that we get from people who go through one of our courses or are part of one of our Facebook groups is like, I'm taking these pictures of my children and they're fast and they're wiggly and they're moving all the time, and I'm never getting crisp images. There's always blur. Sometimes people will say it's out of focus, right? And usually it's really not out of focus. It's just that their shutter speed isn't quite fast enough to capture those like wiggly movie kids.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a few rules of thumb that you can use to determine what shutter speed you need to be at in order to capture whatever is happening in your image. The first rule of thumb is for camera shake. So you may be taking a photo of a completely still person, or you're taking a picture of Arches National Park, right? And
a monument that does not move.
Yes. something that's still, and you take that photo, you get back into your editing software later, you pull it up on your computer screen, or you share it on Facebook, and you zoom in, and you're like, why is this blurry? Nothing was moving.
Yes.
And I know that I nailed the focus. It's in focus. It just feels soft and blurry on the edges. Well, oftentimes what that is camera shake. If you're anything like me, you can't hold your camera still. Like my hands, I could not be a surgeon because my hands just
be anything
shake.
You want to be. Babe.
Oh, thanks. Well, with like robots and stuff, that would help.
Yes.
But I have a hard time holding my camera still. And so especially when I'm using a very long lens, right, like a telephoto 70-200, let's say, and I'm shooting like a bird that's sitting on a tree, and I want to get that crisp, clear image, but I'm all the way at 200 millimeters, so I'm really, really zoomed in. Every slight, tiny little shake that my hands make move that image a lot. So even if I have, let's say I'm shooting at 1/50th of a second, that seems like a very short amount of time to be opening your shutter, right? But because of that zoom on my lens and because my hands move just a little bit, I could potentially add camera shake into that image. So when I get it back, it doesn't look crisp and clean and in focus. So one rule of thumb that I use personally is I try and keep my shutter speed at or above the focal length of my lens. Meaning if I am shooting at 200 millimeters with a long lens, I want my shutter speed to be 1/200th of a second or greater. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that shutter speed is measured and indicated on our cameras by a fraction, typically.
I said that.
Yeah, you did say that. But yeah, so even if you don't see a fraction, if you're moving your shutter speed up and your camera says like 8,000, that is going to mean 1/8,000th of a second. It doesn't mean 8,000 seconds. Right?
The longest shutter speed ever.
Right. So I want my shutter speed to be at or above the focal length of my lens. That's a great rule of thumb to alleviate camera shake from your images.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it also depends on not just your camera and your focal length, but what is it that you're shooting, right? If you are a sports photographer and you are shooting a Denver Broncos football game because you're lucky, then
go home team.
Go home team, club, go sports ball, go.
Sports ball.
Then you're gonna want to be shooting at a much faster shutter speed, right? You're gonna want to be shooting at like 1/1000th of a second because you're gonna want to freeze motion with that shutter speed, right? On the other end of the spectrum, if you are shooting the Milky Way at night and what you're wanting to show is all of those stars and their bright glory and maybe a couple of like, you want to catch some shooting stars or something like that, then you're going to want to be shooting at an extremely slow shutter speed, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe even a 10, 15, 30-second exposure, just keeping that curtain open for a really long time and capturing everything that happens in that time frame.
Yeah, if you've never photographed the stars before, take your camera out tonight if there's a clear sky and practice photographing stars. It's an amazing process because what happens is we go out and we look at the night sky and we see some detail in the sky, but our cameras have the ability to, in one frame, capture 30 seconds or more, right? And so by letting all of that light in over that long of a period of time, you see so much more detail in the stars. You start to see the shape of the galaxy and all of these stars that are showing up that you can't see with your naked eye. So it's a really cool experience and a really good way to practice how to use shutter speed creatively.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there are a lot of ways actually that you can use shutter speed creatively. So we're going to talk about two of them, which is basically freeze motion or showcase motion, right? And let's just say that you are shooting the dew off of a morning leaf. It's rolling off. This would be beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're laughing at me. It's
No,
a great
I like
idea.
it.
You should all do
it's
this.
Just, it's so sensitive for you.
It's so sensitive. I should be wearing my beret when I talk about this. And
It's something that I would photograph. It's not something you would photograph.
No, I don't have the patience for that. Are you kidding me? Please. I'd be like pushing the dew off the leaf. Come on, little dew. But if you want to get that one shot of the water droplet falling off of the leaf, right? You cannot do that with a slow shutter speed. Right? You can't. You're going to want to be shooting at a really, really high shutter speed, and you can freeze motion. You can stop time, and you can showcase just this one fraction of a second. So let's say, for example, this image that I took, right? This image was at a super, super fast shutter speed because I didn't want to show motion in this image. I didn't want to show any type of motion blur. I wanted to capture one quick fraction of a second for these parents to hold on to. The moment when this little boy felt like he could fly, right? If I had shot this image at 1/25th of a second, let's say, we would have some motion blur. There would be a significant amount of motion blur in this image. And so instead, I had to shoot it at a really high shutter speed. And the reason I shot it at a high shutter speed, again, it wasn't because I had too much light and I needed to, make sure that my shutter was open for a shorter amount of time because there was too much light. It was a creative choice. So on the other side of things, there are times where you do want to show some motion blur, right? You do want to show maybe a series of moments instead of just one moment in time. So this image we shot at the end of a wedding day, and it was just after this beautiful celebration, and we wanted to showcase this couple kind of being whisked away into the next chapter of their lives, right? And so in order to do that, there was a flash inside the car, and the flash kind of freezes time on whatever the flash is on, it freezes. And so the couple isn't blurred, but the car going away is blurred. And so this was shot. Do you remember exactly what the shutter speed was on this? I don't want to misquote.
Yeah, no, so I don't know exactly, but if I had to guess, it was probably somewhere around 1/10 of a second. Yeah. And if I had my handy dandy Lightroom up, I could tell you exactly. If I could look at the metadata.
But a slow shutter speed, and it was a creative choice on our part. Again, it wasn't something that we were just choosing shutter speed to compensate for other variables in our camera. That is what we wanted to show. We wanted to show some blur.
And one interesting thing, this is a more advanced technique. But if you incorporate flash into a slow shutter speed photo, and you direct that flash at the thing that you want to pause in time, you get both benefit of a slow shutter speed and showing motion blur, but the flash actually acts kind of like a fast shutter because the flash is only going off for a fraction of a second, a very, 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 very short period of time. Yeah. And so the flash in this photo actually acted as a fast shutter while I was using a slow shutter speed to show this car kind of moving out. But our couple, you can see I had a flash pointed directly at them, and they're crisp and clean, and they have edges, and they don't look blurry.
Yeah, right? So there are a lot of really, really cool things that you can do with that technique. If you are like a dance photographer and you have a stage full of dancers, and you only want to freeze like the prima donna, and you want to show motion all around her. If it's a prima donna, it'd be a her. But
yeah,
what's a primo donna? Is that a male dancer? Someone help me. Someone educate me.
No, I'm not.
That is
I'm not
definitely
that
not
I
correct.
Can't educate you on that.
But I would love to know the answer. I'm going to Google it after this. But the man or the woman who's kind of the star of the show, right? And you want to freeze them. You could use a flash to freeze them while also shooting at a lower shutter speed, a slower shutter speed. And there would be kind of this cool motion happening around them. So there are so many cool, creative ways that you can use fast or slow shutter speed.
Yeah.
Anytime you change a variable in your camera, you have to compensate for what that variable is doing.
I was just about to hop in and say that exact same thing.
Because we're married. It's because we got chemistry.
One thing, real quick,
you're not even going to respond to that.
We do have chemistry. You're right. Hi, Greg. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Bailey. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Chad over on Facebook. We're so glad that you guys are joining us. We are kind of nearing the end of the content that we have prepared, but if any of you have any questions,
send them our way.
Leave them in the comments, and we'll try and answer them before we hop off, or we'll jump into the comments and try and answer your questions as best we have, as best we can.
You were talking about our chemistry?
Chemistry, yes. Our chemistry is much like the chemistry of shutter speed and aperture and ISO. All of these things work together to you see what I did there?
No, actually. Sorry. Okay, we're gonna get back on track now.
But no, what Ashley was saying earlier is when you change one setting in your camera, one of the three most important settings, which would be shutter speed, aperture, and ISO.
The triangle dance.
The triangle dance. Yes. If you're familiar, we kind of made it famous on Facebook a while back.
Super famous. 7 people saw it.
Yeah, it was pretty huge.
Blowing
it was amazing.
Up. The Jonas Brothers are probably going to start doing it, I think.
Yeah. We're keeping our eye out to make sure that we get royalties on the triangle dance.
I'm a sucker for you. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
So each of these things interrelate to one another.
Yes.
If we, for instance, want to have a slower shutter speed, but we want to keep our exposure the same, so we like the exposure that we're seeing, but we want to have a slower shutter speed to capture some motion in our photo, for instance, then we're going to have to compensate. That means that we're letting light come into our camera for more time, for a longer period of time. So we either have to let less light come in over that period of time, which would mean making our aperture smaller, or we would need to make our media less sensitive to that light that's hitting it so that it doesn't expose as quickly, right?
By lowering our ISO.
By lowering our ISO,
yes.
That's right. Yes, so same thing applies if let's say we are taking a photo of that bird in the tree with our long telephoto lens, and we notice that there's some camera shake in our photo. So we want to have a faster shutter speed. If I increase my shutter speed. I'm letting light into my camera for less time.
Curtains open for a fraction of a second.
Yep. Which means I need to let more light in, make that hole in our lens bigger. So
because functionally, speeding up your shutter speed is going to darken your image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because we're letting that light in for less time, it's not exposing our media as much.
Exactly.
And so functionally, like Ash said, what that looks like when you look at the photo is it's going to be darker, and maybe you don't like that exposure, right? So then we would let more light into our camera over that same period of time, or make our sensor more sensitive to the light that's hitting it, so we can expose the same amount of light for the same amount of time, or for a shorter period of time, but that sensor reacts more quickly to the light so that our exposure is correct.
Totally. So we're either going to have a wider aperture, like a bigger eyeball in our camera, right? Or we're going to have a higher ISO, more sensitivity.
Yeah. Totally. So what could someone do to practice shutter speed?
I love giving people photo assignments. Seriously, not just because I'm bossy, which a little bit sometimes I can be, but because when people say to us, which we hear all the time and we get it, figuring out how to use your camera is really confusing. It takes too much time. It's complicated, right? What I say to that is it's two things. It's time and light. That's it. Time and light. Time and light. You can just wrap your head around how the variables affect those two things. And the quickest way to do that is not by reading your manual, even though this guy would tell you that it is.
I mean, it is.
It's not. It's fine. He's wrong. It's okay. It is by going out and shooting. It's by practicing. It's by saying, okay, what photo assignment can I give myself to teach myself about shutter speed? So here's an idea. Find something around you that is perpetually in motion. It can be a faucet of running water. It can be a ceiling fan. It can be a babbling brook. It can be
one of those things you put on your desk that the little
That's
hanging.
not a metronome.
Well, yeah, a metronome would work too.
But what is that called?
It's like it's a desk thingy. It's the desk thingy. Everyone knows what the desk thingy is.
That's actually what we're more like than shutter speed ISO.
We're just knocking each other back and forth.
What I want you to do is find that thing that is perpetually in motion and get near it and shoot it at different shutter speeds. Okay, so I want you to shoot it at a really slow shutter speed so that you're showcasing the motion. You're capturing multiple moments in time. And I want you to just crank it up incrementally. I want you to see the difference in what that photo looks like, freezing time versus showcasing motion. And I also want you to understand what you have to change in order to compensate for what's happening when you're switching your shutter speed. Yep. Okay? That is your photo assignment. I would love to see how it turns out. If you want to hop in my DMs. Is that a thing that kids say?
No. It is not, but that's okay.
There's a song that someone does say that. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, you would know better than I would. He
got stuck in my DMs. It's a Lizzo song. No one is helping me with what the guy who is the head dancer is called.
What is this thing? Yeah.
And also what kids say about your DMs.
So
someone please help me with those.
If you're watching this, drop us a comment and let us know about those because we don't know.
And I'm trying to help you. You need to help me.
Yeah, so that is a basic overview of shutter speed. If you are curious about how to shoot in manual and how shutter speed relates to aperture and ISO, we've put together a super easy cheat sheet that kind of outlines how all of these things work and how they interrelate to one another. You can download that for free at manualbootcamp.com. On that same page, you can also subscribe to our email list. We send out tons of information to our email subscribers.
It's a lot more focused in nature than when we just ramble on.
Yeah, so you get an actual article that'll say everything that we just said in 20 minutes, and over your morning coffee, you can read it in 2.5 minutes.
If you prefer that, don't tell us, because it will hurt our feelings.
Yeah, because we like being here present with you and being ridiculous in front of the camera. But no, you can download that cheat sheet there. Also, if you're wanting a more structured approach to learning manual mode took us months, literally months, to figure out how
shooting every day.
how to shoot. So we put together an email course that over the course of 7 days, we hit your inbox before anybody else. So you can wake up, you can see that email. We walk through one particular concept and give you a photo assignment, photos and all, so you get examples. And we really, really dive deep into these different concepts, aperture, shutter speed, ISO, how they all relate to one another, and how you can utilize each one to shoot in manual like a pro. Yeah. And it walks you through that process so that you go from not knowing how to shoot in manual to knowing how to shoot in manual like a pro in 7 days. And that's it. So more information about that email course is at manualbootcamp.com. Just sign up for the free cheat sheet, and then you'll get information about that course as well. It's only $17, so it's super easy. You can hop in there and forego your coffee at Starbucks for the week and learn how to shoot in manual, which will be amazing. Yes. And then you can resume your coffee routine.
Right, because we don't want you to be miserable.
We don't.
No.
Cool. So also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we are super excited about our YouTube channel. We are getting close to our first milestone, which is 100 subscribers. We wanted to have 100 subscribers, and you guys have shown up and you've subscribed. If you get in, we're at 80 something right now, so you have a very narrow window. But if you get in and you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will be automatically entered to win both our Manual Mode Bootcamp course, that $17 email course, and our much more expensive and much more comprehensive video course called Snap, where we walk through both the concepts of shooting in manual, but then also the creative principles behind photography, light, and how to utilize it to make your photographs beautiful and great. And you'll also get a additional mini course in iPhone photography, which is a very robust educational package.
You just had like your Dumbledore voice on.
Robust. And if you subscribe to our channel and you're one of the first 100 to subscribe, you're automatically entered to win that prize package when we hit 100 subscribers. Yeah. So definitely check that out. Again, you can find that at youtube.thescobeys.com. That'll take you straight to our YouTube page. Just hit the little subscribe button. And if you want to know every time we go live or every time we post new content, after you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, and that will notify you at each time we have new content for you to watch.
Which is every Friday! At the very least, we will be in here doing live Fridays for you guys. If there's anything that you want us to do a live Friday on, please tell us.
Yeah, leave them in the comments.
We are listening to you.
We definitely want to know what you want to learn about. Yes. So we can talk about anything. We can review gear. We can talk about the concepts of photography. We can share our screen and go into our editing process, yes, or how to use Lightroom, how to use the Photos application on your computer. Anything remotely related to photography, we want to be able to share with you, and at least tell you what we know about it. And if we don't know anything about it, we're going to go and become experts on it for you, so that you don't have to spend hours and hours researching. Yeah. So yeah, we are super excited that you guys have joined us today. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next.
For you. I'm just dancing them out. You can just. I'm a sucker for you.
We need some music to play.
This is better than music.
Debatable. All right, you
Bye,
guys.
you guys. Have a good
we'll
weekend.
See you next.